Hello and welcome to another episode of the Laura Sanzo podcast with your host, Laura Sanzo. Everyone's perception of the world is different based on their model of the world, and her goal is to celebrate that by building the most inclusive self-development podcast. Laura and her guests share their stories and share invaluable strategies from the world of science, spirituality, business, health, personal relationships, and everything in between. We cover it all. Get inspired, learn to welcome adversity, understand that failure is only feedback, and get ready to hear discussion on some of the most important issues facing us today. Enjoy the episode. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Laura Samantha podcast. You are in such a treat today with today's episode. I'm going to let the guests introduce themselves, but you guys are going to love this episode. So Sam and Aussie, I'll let you both introduce yourselves.
Sure. Thanks, Laura, for having us. We're so excited for this conversation. So I'm Sam.
And I'm Aussie.
And we've kind of developed our brand of Keep It Saucy. So together we make up Saucy.
Aussie and Sam. Saucy.
I was going to say, you guys sound like you said this before. So.
Actually, that was just like flowing out of us.
Yeah.
So no, but we're really excited because we've actually, I guess for any of your listeners who might not know, but we've kind of known Laura we've known you for like 1 or 2 years already. So something.
Two. I think more than two.
More than two, because when we met, it was like very much, I think, in the beginning of the pandemic.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It
was before.
Okay.
So, yeah.
We were all very much online.
Yeah.
And I happened to meet all these incredible people from the States.
Right.
So blessed.
And recently we had this opportunity, or whatever you might want to call it, to be on a Netflix series called The Ultimatum Queer Love. And so, we've kind of, life has happened in the last few months or so.
And I remember when you had told us you were recording something, and I think you had finished, I think, when we recorded the first podcast episode together, which I want to like bring people's attention to because it was such a powerful episode. I want to make sure, okay, I'll do that now since I just brought it up. If you haven't had an opportunity to listen to an episode that Samantha did with myself and Charmaine, which is a mutual friend of all of ours, on diversity and inclusion, you're going to want to do that. It was such an amazing episode where we really allowed people to have space to come as they are and to unmask. And I asked Samantha and Aussie here today to really deep dive more into that conversation. And so I remember, to your point about the show, I think it was just during one of those, we were having so many online interactions because there was nothing really open. You had mentioned that you filmed something and there wasn't really much you can say about it. And it was, such a great experience. So it was amazing for us to now be able to see him. And I watched every episode. And I'm being biased, of course. We were my favorite couple. Hence why I asked you both here today. Because, but we didn't finish introducing you. Sam, continue.
Yeah.
And Aussie.
Well, Aussie, you go for it.
Well, I guess I'm excited because I am passionate about the healing journey that I've been on. I'm an advocate for mental health and, equality in all aspects, from, climate justice, environmental protection through to, social and economic justice and just, self improvement and development in our own healing journey to be the best versions of ourselves. So that's why I'm excited to talk to you with a spiritual lens today. And that's something that's very prevalent in my life and both of our relationships.
Yeah.
Can I just say, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say this is also like very apt because I am a tarot healer. That's what I call my sessions. And so we were kind of excited to have this conversation with someone who's also very much into, spiritual practices and spirituality and how that shows up. And so, we get to kind of have this conversation in a very different capacity than we've gotten to so far.
Definitely. And, I think on that note, people can take with there resonates with them from it and what may not resonate. But I just want to take a moment before we get started to really just highlight how happy you look, Sam. You're always glowing and you look happy, but it's just like at a different level right now. So that's obviously a testament to you, Aussie. So
I say that Sam is just flying high, and she's always vibing up there, and it's so inspiring to watch her, and be in her energy.
Yeah, like the show actually sparked us on many a healing journey. So,
for sure.
Yeah.
So if it's okay, can I explain why I asked you here based on what I saw from the show as both of you operating as a couple?
Yeah.
So I obviously Aussie's vulnerability, your vulnerability, Sam. I just thought it was amazing for you both to really show people and aspire on people how powerful it could be when a couple is working together versus away from each other, if that makes sense. I find with this type of work, we were talking a little bit before we start recording, I find that one person is usually doing a lot of the work. And we know when something like that happens, usually what's going to happen is that person is going to vibrationally just, right, start outgrowing people around them. So I thought it was super powerful that did happen to the both of you, that you, exactly what you just said, also, you kind of feed off each other's growth, which I think is amazing, because I think for a lot of couples, regardless if they're straight couples, same-sex couples, people get intimidated by the other person's growth, or it's just, they're doing individual growth and not together. So I thought it was that was my biggest takeaway from watching you both on the show, was just how you both work in sync. And that's not easy to do. That's really shedding your ego and allowing yourself to show up raw.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Kudos to you both.
That's like one of the biggest things that I think we found that wasn't quite understood by like the majority, because obviously we know that not everyone watching reality shows is like tuned in to spirituality. And there was very much this sense of not quite understanding what it looks like to challenge ourselves to learn how to hold space in, situations that seem like, oh, get out of there, or like, that's not good for you. But it's like in those moments, we each got what we were meant to from that, which was like, even for me, one of them was being able to hold more space and like not needing to tend to things like right away in this moment, right? And so that's hard to really show through an edited reality show, but that was a lot what was happening like internally, was holding more space was really important for me. And
and that's not to say, if you are in a toxic relationship that you don't take the cues and leave. But when you are doing this conscious partnership work, I
love that term.
Yeah, that's actually what I was calling in when I was, before I met Sam. Yeah. And I manifested her to do the work, because in my past relationships is that, you get to this stage of your relationship where, the rubber meets the road, and now it's time to, address some of the deeper stuff that's going to surface naturally in the, partnership from your day-to-day interactions. And it's just to be able to pay attention to that. And if you're both doing the work internally, then you know that the symptoms that are showing up isn't about the symptoms, it's something deeper. And so when you're both on the same page about that work and that direction and the purpose of that this relationship, then you are able to do the individual healing work and then come together and also hold space, give space sometimes, and then also, go and, support your partner if they need it, and show up, no matter how scary that might feel or how intimidating that might feel. But to be able to do that work together is such it's been a blessing. And that's what I've been trying to call in for, the longest time. So I'm just very appreciative of what we've got. It's not easy. It's not easy. Yeah. but it is so worth it and so rewarding. So yeah, that's what the show actually kickstarted.
Oh yeah.
So do you feel that is just the catalyst for even more growth with you guys?
Oh yeah.
Since you've
Oh,
done the show,
absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely.
1,000%.
And granted, some of it maybe came at us like 1,000-fold rather than, kind of like moderation. So catalyzing is definitely like a good, but like really like here it all is like in 2 months' time. And then, you're gonna have some space. And then all of a sudden, like when the release came out, it was another kind of just like burst all like at once. And so there was a lot of this like very short time span of everything just like going. So very much so.
It's been such an interesting, even like Sam was saying, when the release came out. So there was, other things that came up, watching yourself, interacting in the way that, the dramatization, the narrative that you're given was another level that I had to dig deep and be okay with, So there was just so many opportunities for deeper healing, deeper realizations and, going inward. Very challenging.
And actually, this is a very weird thing of like, everything came out a year and a half later. So it's like we had gone through so much. And then we had this year and a half of like processing things and healing things. And
then they're coming up again.
All of a sudden, it was just like, wait, that was just like a year and a half ago. Like, we're not the same person anymore.
Yeah. That's so interesting. Yeah.
And how long have you guys been together prior to the record?
A year and a half.
Yeah, a year and a half.
To 2 years.
Before that.
Before filming. And so it was at that, like for me, at that, what you would call the power struggle stage in a relationship. The ripe stage of, now, you can choose to leave and go, this is too hard and, separate, or you can decide to do the work, take it on and really see it for what it is. So that was where we're at. The stuff that we brought into the show were natural things, but then you've got the stuff with the show, like my first trial marriage partner that I had to bring into this. And so it was just other pressures on top of pressures that we already had. But it was really good opportunity.
And then the opinions and judgments of like thousands of people.
Right?
Yeah.
On your relationship when there's.
Did you want to turn off your comments on Instagram?
Oh my God, especially. Oh yeah. Yeah, it was definitely a moment of self-reflection and really going deeper because I thought I was prepared for it, but I really wasn't. And it gave me firsthand experience of what other people in the public eye might be going through with such harsh judgment and harsh, comments. So it was another level that I had to go, not caring about what other people think, knowing my why I did this, my original reason for wanting to help other people not feel alone on their healing journey. So it was really challenging. And I'm so grateful I had Sam and my, circle of support with that. But it showed me how detrimental, social media is, to your mental health. It really showed me firsthand. So, yeah.
Yeah. And that I love human design. That actually became something that was really helpful for us after filming, because I was working with and still am like a spiritual therapist, and she is a manifester, which is what Aussie is. Right. And then myself being a projector, even looking back at the show, it's like, I wonder how much of that manifester anger was coming out of like,
I don't know what you're talking about.
And then there's like me as a projector, just like seeing how everything flows together and like putting pieces together. And I'm like, I think that actually kind of had something to do with our experiences there.
Yeah.
But I really feel, Ozzy, you really uphold your boundaries. You did such an amazing job doing that, because I know that could not have been easy.
It was not as a people pleaser codependent. And it was actually my first time like standing up for myself and taking like, so that was something that I was really appreciative that it forced me to do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, there was so many personal growth that I had in going through the mechanics of the whole thing, you know, from the change overnight when, you know, I felt that Sam didn't support me, you know, when my character was being attacked, you know, by my trial marriage partner, and not being able to move in with Sam that night. I had to be on my own. I had to go inward and not rely on outside support because I was messaging people. I was trying to call people. No one was available. But that was the universe.
The universe is like,
no, you're gonna deal with this on your own. You're gonna
goodness.
face your, you know, inner critic, that you're not lovable, that you're being abandoned. So I had to sit with that the whole night. I couldn't sleep till 3 a.m. that morning. And so it really forced me to do the work. and all I had, my tools in my tool bag at the time, was my spirituality. So I had to go in, I had to dig deep, and it made me do the things that I, you know, normally, if I had my support system in the outside world, would have been there and would have alleviated the pressure. But yeah, so I'm grateful for all those things, but it was so freaking hard, you know.
So that year,
yeah.
that year and a half in between completing it and it being aired, how do you feel it really altered your relationship?
Oh, that was really, really challenging. Actually, probably even more challenging than after everything was released. And it was a weird time to be like not able to talk about what happened or like what we went through. And, you know, at the end of it, we had an engagement out of it, but like couldn't talk about it or so it was like just a really weird time of like this isolation and trying to unpack some of the stuff that had come up during filming with like this whole idea of trust and like abandonment or it brought up a lot.
I mean, the trauma that was, you know, shown, I didn't even know it was going to come out. I mean, I know I've got a history of trauma, but I didn't know it was going to come out in that way. And so it was really difficult to process all of that and manage the relationship. Now you've got trust issues and, you know, all the other stuff. So it was actually, I would say I went through another spiritual awakening, like another level of spiritual awakening. You know, went through the dark night of soul for sure, went through the void, you know, and then coming out on the other end with a different set of core values. Totally different. Like it's crazy. Like I'm a different person with different outlook. But it took a lot to just go through all of that, process all of that, and then, you know, slowly come out and you know, start putting into practice some of the other stuff, because it took my legs out basically.
It was kind of like an identity crisis.
Yeah.
And so I really go ahead.
Oh, but I'm saying I'm really grateful for it, because I am now a different person with, you know, things that I know I, you know, cared about, that mattered to me, that don't matter, right? So I was carrying that stuff around with me for the longest time, but now it's like a refresh, a renewal, and
I love that.
a lighter being.
Yeah.
So while Aussie was showing that side, I felt that you really leaned into using your voice, which was super powerful to see. How did that feel?
It felt
You got national TV too.
I know. I'm like, it felt really good and it was very like empowering. And like in retrospect, my only thing is like, I wish I had certain tools to know how to like also validate Aussie's experience at the time. But I'm not like judging myself. I didn't know what was happening on the other side, you know? But I feel like I've been able to kind of like that got the momentum going. And I was really able to kind of play with that version of myself that I wanted to be or that I was envisioning for myself. And I'm like, why wouldn't I just do it? Like, I have no, like, there's no ties to who I am while I'm stepping into this new space. So I might as well just see what happens. And so I kind of just like used it as almost like my practice grounds for like, oh, what does this empowered self look like? And like, what does it feel like? And what I got from it really was like this renewed sense of confidence in myself, and especially with like the infamous dog fight. It was like getting to really have that light bulb moment of like, what am I doing here? Why am I like being like why am I fighting with who I am and like what my own interests are, or like, you know, but like someone that I barely met, like why is their opinion affecting me this much? And so it really gave me this opportunity to be like, okay, hold on, let's back up here. I know who I am. And so with that, I was just able to kind of build on it and just start stepping into that person. And so I got to kind of take that with me from there.
I love that because how we're all derailed by other people's opinions, right? Regardless of the work that we do.
Right.
Yeah. It shows up where you haven't completed, right? So keep showing up in different ways, and it allows you to, you know, take the opportunity to go deeper and deeper and, you know, release more.
Yeah.
Was there anything that really surprised you of each other that hadn't even come up the 2 years prior?
Yeah, that recent revelation
during the show, or like after,
or just in general, because it was probably a catalyst from that as well.
Oh yeah.
Recently we had a big revelation about our trust issues, you know, for both of us, and tying it back to our past experiences of being betrayed basically by people we trusted. So that was not just in like a romantic partnership, but friendships, in our business and work settings, you know, in our family settings. So it was really, really enlightening to tie that back.
Yeah, we've had just like interesting conversations that, of course, seem so unrelated, but it's just our way of having the conversation come up that we really need to have. So some of them could be just as silly as like, what are we going to eat today? And somehow that turns into a thing. And then we find out that it was like, oh, wait, this is tied to my childhood some way. We've had so many of those where it's just like, okay, yeah, that was just the means to get to here. And so we kind of like traced some of the conflicts that we had when we had moved back together in the show, of like where that kind of lack of trust and that those underlying feelings of betrayal kind of played into where we were having our disconnects, and like why Aussie was kind of feeling like I wasn't being supportive or understanding or any of those things. And like just the way that we were both showing up, it was like, oh, I see. It's because there's this underlying like fear that we're going to be left in the dust, or we're going to put ourselves out there and it's all just going to be thrown in our faces. And so there was like, that came up only within the last couple of weeks. So it's very recent that we tied that back to all of that.
And having that vulnerable conversation about it, you know, without your armor, without your judgment, and all of that, like just really honestly talking about it. And that was very healing for the both of us.
Yeah.
So you're both very obviously open to the healing process and welcome it, really. what would you say to somebody that's going to listen who they themselves are on this journey of healing, but may not be with a partner that understands it or sees any values in it or just doesn't speak that language really?
I've been in that situation before. So, and the thing is that it's not about the other person. It never is about the other person. So it's you focusing on your work, what's coming up for you, and naturally following, the evidence down that road and keeping, your business is no one else's business. So if you're doing that on your own, then naturally, as you said earlier, you will vibrate to a situation, to a place where things will happen naturally, where that relationship, if it's meant to be for you, will come with you or it'll naturally fall away. So you really don't have to worry about whether that's the right person for you or not. You just have to focus on you and what's coming up for you and doing the healing work for you, and then everything else will take care of itself. So,
and I think for me, it came down a lot to like trust in being guided, trust that everything is happening as it's meant to. And when I was really able to develop that sense of trust, I then was able to process everything in a whole new way. So even when it comes to like, oh, this person is doing this to me, or that situation happened to me, it's like approaching everything from what am I meant to learn from this? What is coming up for me? And kind of taking it all back down to like, how do I feel about this and why? And being able to explore that. Because if I already just take everything as it's happening for a reason, or if I even just give it the benefit of the doubt, even if I'm just like, there's no way this has to do with anything, just giving it that openness of like, well, maybe let's just see. And it really allows for like these revelations to happen, or these dots to just kind of like, I kind of always envision these like two ends of a cord finally just going like that and connecting together. And it's like, oh, I get it. But without that kind of openness, then it's so easy to just feel like life is happening to us all the time, and that just makes it really difficult. And that's just like trying to run up a hill, and you have like the bands pulling you back, and there's just all of that friction and resistance. And so I've just kind of like done my best to detach from everything, and like not assign meanings to everything, because that's just what it seems like it probably is, but allow it to like show itself. So just that trust has been really key for me.
I love that. So you both were really representative of the spiritual world on the show. I love like the little narratives that came up, and especially from Sam. So how did that feel? That as much as it must have been empowering, it couldn't have been always easy to be surrounded by a group of people that may not be on the same journey, or may even hold the same belief systems, right?
Right.
I think we were expecting that. And I mean, the actual real motivation for saying yes to the show was to I guess implement that in that genre where it's never seen. So going into it knowing that was our intention and setting that intention, it allowed for whatever come up, to use that experience as a way for anything to come up that allows our own spiritual growth and our own self-development. So we had that intention going into it, let's do this 5D, let's do this 5D, and let's try and uplift the consciousness of the people around us, hopefully, maybe the people that are going to be watching the show, hopefully, maybe. So that was our intention.
I think we just felt like a divine calling to it. It felt like everything about it just felt like we were being led there. And at the time, I was working with our mutual friend Gita, and I was under her spiritual mentorship. And so I was like also really like getting primed for it before I even knew that it was going to be happening. And of course, divine timing that she and I were trying to connect. And then, of course, as we're about to get on the road and drive down to San Diego, she calls me and I'm like, oh, hey, we're going to be on like a 3-hour drive. So let me just take this call. And that was like, of course, the universe was like coming in and mental preparation, emotional preparation. And that also helped kind of put me in that mindset of like, I'm going to do my best to approach things from 5D. I've been doing my work. I'm like,
easier said than done, right?
Yeah. So everything was kind of just like coming together. And so everything about it, we're just like, we're not going to totally know what we're doing this for, like what it's meant for, but we just feel like this wild experience of like being asked to be on the show, like for that to even happen. And then for us to have this belief that we were going to get it, like, where did that come from?
And how did it feel being one of the very few couples to be together at the end? You were one of 2 couples, right?
We were one of 2, but as of like earlier this year, we're the only ones.
Okay, and engaged, right?
Yeah. So everyone else has parted ways except
how did that must feel? That really is a testament to you both, obviously, in the work that you do, but how open you are to the work.
Oh yeah,
I think so. Not to, say that the others didn't do the work or, they're on their path as well. But I felt like we got a lot out of it, and it wasn't like, oh, we're going to, stay together or we're going to, really go on this and just leave with somebody else. But it was just leaving it up to the universe and doing what was in our control to control. So it was just, how are we reacting in the situation? What are things are coming up? So basically following that, and the result was staying together, the result was growing together. So that's been, obviously awesome. But at the same time, I think, I'm appreciative of the opportunity that we had to do, the work to get here. So.
And I feel, well, before we drove down there for filming, we had some pretty like deep conversations and we both really surrendered it and the relationship to the
so powerful.
We actually had a conversation and we were like, ourselves first, and if this is meant to be, the relationship will be at the end of it. But we really did surrender that to the universe of like, we're going to allow each other to go on our own journey as we're meant to and not have that ties of holding each other back from anything. And so we really like came to terms with that before, and I think that had a big difference. And so it really was like, that was like our ultimate surrendering before we went on there.
And I would love to stay here for a second with the both of you, because we're just human nature for us to want to control, especially in a relationship, especially for those that have those attachment issues, right? And outcomes for everything, not just relationships, really. So what does that look like for somebody that's going to listen or watch in terms of that surrendering? Because you make it sound so easy. We just surrendered our relationship going on a show with like 10 other strangers, right? But so
definitely not easy.
No.
Especially for someone that is anxiously attached. So yeah, the mechanics definitely, like it really was an going inward process for me, and really looking at what's coming up, and here's the person over here telling me that, no, I'm not abandoning you. No, I'm not saying I don't love you. I'm not saying I don't support you, but I'm feeling with all my might that's what they're doing. That's showing up for me. And so it's really going inward, really drilling down, through I was using all of my tools, meditation, somatic experiencing, getting support, I wish there was mental health support, but you know, doing that work and relying on that really helped to take baby steps, you know, despite how you're feeling, and not allowing your, you know, inner critic or your conditioning, your upbringing, all the things like you're not lovable to take over. And it's really looking at your shadow, you know, in the face.
And I think for me, I would probably bring it down to those like core foundations of like that trust. So as these opportunities were kind of just flowing towards us, and we were really sitting with them and allowing like our, you know, inner guidance or our inner beings to kind of like show us the way, right? And so we had been asking for certain healing or coming together, and this so happened to be the means for us. Just as for others, I firmly believe that it was meant to break people apart because they were having difficulties doing it otherwise. And so I think it's really just like approaching things from that level of like things are happening as they're meant to. And just because our coming together ended up being solidified by a reality show, I mean, that was just the way it was meant to do it for us. And for others, it's really allowing our own kind of inner guidance to like guide us towards what is meant for us. And so that's going to look different for everybody. And it's like going back to that sense of self and like, what are we really asking for? We're asking for healing. We're asking for either coming together or that knowing that we should go our separate ways. Like that was our sense of like, it was going to give us what we were seeking. And it did. It was a journey and we're still on it. But it absolutely did all those things that we had been asking for.
How long were you there in total?
It was about 2 months.
It felt like 2 years.
That's a big chunk of time.
Right.
It's very intensive. Yeah. It really felt like a boot camp of, you know, emotional processing. Yeah.
For anybody that hasn't seen it yet, I really hope people do. There's so much to learn from it, even as a reality show. And you know, I'm sure there's something to learn from any reality show because human behavior is so fascinating in itself, right? So when you're able to watch something with an open heart and an open mind and an openness to learn, there's so much we can really learn from each other. How important was it you to both do it? It being the queer version, because there is the version for straight couples, right? That I believe,
yeah, they just
has
had
been on
second one come out.
Yeah, so how that must have been very important, right? To have that representation, I would imagine.
Yeah, that was another level of like just feeling guided and feeling like we had a lot of messages or things to share with whichever audience was going to be attracted our way. And so that was another thing where it felt like this is going to be part of the means to how we, you know, spread some of the words that we're meant to put out there. And
yeah, I wanted, I mean, I'm naturally vulnerable. So I knew that this would reach you know, the queer audience. And I was just thinking of, you know, I didn't have this growing up. I didn't have this when I struggled to see myself represented out there. And I wanted to be able to show, you know, the good, the bad, and the ugly of the, you know, the human experience, not just the queer experience. Because like, you know, we said earlier, you know, we're all beings, and this journey of healing and going through trauma and difficult challenges in life, and what that looks like in your adult life, that's everyone's journey. So I wanted to be able to express that, and hopefully if it's even one person that can resonate, and if it helps them in any way or any form, that was, I felt called to do that. So yeah.
I was actually with my this was earlier when it had just aired or was on, because you were in the top 10 for a long period of time. with one of my younger brothers. He's 24, 25, and he was watching it with his girlfriend, and they're all like group of friends. I'm like, oh, my friend's on that. And he's like, really? I'm like, yeah. So, just to show that it reached beyond
Right.
that community, which is so powerful.
I think with reality shows like this, I don't think I had ever heard so many conversations of people saying how many times they rewatched the entire series, which it was very common that people had seen it either 2 or 3 times over. And how many people were saying how they were pausing it at every major scene so that they could have conversations with their partners or like reflect with their friends. And I'm like, yeah, you don't really hear about that with other shows. So there was something very special about this season, that it was so relatable, but then it also shared different perspectives, which was just so cool.
Right.
And, you both were, of course, I'm being biased, but you both were a huge part of that.
Oh, thank you for saying that.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
that. Yeah.
So what's next for the both of you? Another season?
Maybe it depends on the premise.
hosting it maybe.
I think like it's been an amazing thing of also like allowing for ego checks, to be honest. Like I literally had some people in my networks where before the launch I was like, just so you know, if I start going off the rails and I lose sight of things, please tell me. Because I'm like, you just never know. And there's so many like people who get so like, disillusioned by everything, that I'm like, I want to be able to still be myself and just have this as like another part of that journey. And so part of it is learning how to keep our egos in check, but then also use the platform because it has been, given to us. So talking about things like mental health and advocacy stuff is really important in building that community.
Yeah, I mean, mental health advocacy is huge for me to be able to use, especially in the Asian community, with my family history. And I don't think you get to see that storyline, if at all. Even just the whole dynamic with like, my gender identity and my family knowing and not knowing, and exploring that. Those are real dynamics that, especially from coming from an immigrant traditional family background. So I've been touched by how many people have resonated with that and saying we don't get to see that, and thank you for being vulnerable and showing that, and it has helped them with their family dynamics. So it's just continuing the work and continuing the education, even for those who had didn't resonate, or maybe it resonated in them, the shadow part of them. So you either hate them or you love them, right? So that's the kind of reaction you get. And so the hate that I've gotten through showing my vulnerability has been opportunities as well as guideposts for, wow, this is the state of the world, and this is the state where there's more education needed here and more healing needed here. And also reflects back, I'm like, this is not about me. So doing that work as well
is challenging.
It is challenging.
Yeah.
That's where the trust in like the law of divine oneness comes into play, right? Just really trusting the work that we're doing is healing this crazy world and somehow.
Yeah, definitely.
And I love, just to go back to the boundary piece for a second, because I feel that that's a narrative that's really been talked a lot about on social media recently in all different capacities. But just, Aussie, when you were able to be like, I'm not ready for this conversation right now, like that's huge. Like, it may have just simply came up for you because that's intuitively what you were feeling, but for somebody to hear something as simple as that and give them permission to be able to be in something that doesn't feel comfortable, and to be able to be like, or even just something as simple as like, you know what, I'm not going to go on social media today, or I'm going to say no to this, when instead of saying yes even though I want to say no, to just be able to be like, I'm going to choose me in this moment. Like that's huge. So thank you for that.
Oh, thank you. I mean, it took years, a decade probably, to get here, and it's still a conscious effort every time. It's a conscious effort to do that. But it's, it does get easier. So for those who are doing that work, it does pay back, 1,000-fold. So yeah, it's worth working on. Yeah. But oh, sorry, Laura. I have that train of thought that I've noticed. It's a trait that Sam always goes, people think you're done, but you're not.
I know. I have another question coming up in my head too. That's why I usually have some sort of like roadmap of questions, because then I know I'll just chat for like ever.
But another interesting point to that is the opposite, where a lot of people don't see what I did, meaning taking time to say, actually having the awareness to go, ooh, my fight flight, amygdala is going haywire right now, and I'm not going to have a productive conversation, and to be able to self-regulate and needing that and expressing that that's what I need, and walking away and taking the time to do that wasn't well received in the wider community. So that's something that I was surprised to see and receive back. And even during filming, it wasn't well received by the producer, because they kept going.
Oh, really? Because we're so used to being reactive.
They were like, asking me questions in a way where it was like I was doing something wrong by doing that. And I'm like, there's nothing wrong with walking away. It's okay to take time. You don't have, because the opposite of that, if I don't take the time, is I'm going to have World War III with the person. And that is not, I don't want to go into the unconscious state now. I don't want to have my pain body come out and, just have salt in each other's wound. That is not my intention, and that's not what I want to do. So that's what I was trying to do in the show. And so that is also reflected back to me in the comment sections. When I did do that, a lot of people didn't understand it. A lot of people were like, you got to have the conversation now. You're a coward. You're running away. But yeah, so it's opportunity to teach and educate and demonstrate. And this is a great format, what you're doing here, to be able to talk about that, because obviously the reality TV format doesn't have space for that.
Well, and I really think that's one of the things that we were meant to share with the greater community of viewers and followers, is like really what our conversation is and how this work happens within a relationship. Because even just the fact that we have been able to stay in this partnership, we also get to hear both sides again, where I can also, from my end, also remind people of, in some moments there might be those insecurities coming up for me, or maybe this has also to do with my inability to speak my needs in that moment, and also talking about it from the side of the person who wants to do things now doesn't always mean that that's the right way to do it. That's just kind of the dynamic that's showing up. And it's like, no, again, let's take a step back. Like, there's two people here and we are reflecting to each other what our needs are. And so getting to kind of share that message together, I think is part of what we're meant to share.
You guys, I don't know, you don't have to release this or disclose this, but you guys have to have like a show or something together where you're working with couples. Like, I'm sure the dialogue has happened, but that just intuitively came to me, like, that's going to happen. Trust me.
What? That was, that's what I would love to have, is like, maybe a format where conscious, partnership is in display, and honestly, with no like, dramatic narratives, like real honest couplehood, what that looks like. And that would be awesome. I'd be part of that. Yeah.
And the spiritual piece, because that's what's missing in a lot of therapy rooms, right? I think that would really attract a lot of people.
Yeah, 1,000%. Yeah.
I don't know
I don't know.
Well, now that we put it out there,
right.
We're gonna get that call tomorrow. So you're still doing your readings? Tell us a
Yeah.
bit more about that.
Yeah, no, that's been a lot of fun because I've very much enjoyed getting to actually like connect with people like one on one. And so I actually enjoy doing my sessions. So again, I call them tarot healing sessions because I love focusing more on that subconscious and the empowerment and reminding people of like their own needs and that connection with self. But it's also kind of cool because it's like through social media and stuff, we kind of just like know people's like usernames or like handles, and we kind of see some pictures. But like to get to really connect with people like that, I have really, really loved and really enjoyed. So yeah, I'm still doing that and seeing what's gonna come from that, like dabbling into creating courses and stuff for people interested in tarot. So yeah, just kind of playing around with it.
I always tell Sam, like, it's so awesome what you're doing because you're helping raise the consciousness of the world, one at a time. It's just such a blessing.
Yeah.
Have you chosen a date, or that conversation hasn't happened yet?
No.
Just enjoying the process, the journey.
Yeah, we are very much so.
I think, well, you can speak more on this, but I feel like it's given us more clarity on what marriage means, right? Like, what does that really mean? Is it just a piece of paper? Is it, like going through with the whole like expensive extravaganza, but for me, it's simplify things. It was really the commitment that I was looking for to get clarification on. And so the everything else is kind of like peripheral stuff that we can when we're ready, because it's not, cheap either to have a wedding. So the planning and all of that is so stressful. So it's just that I got my answer, and that's all I need. And I think for you, Sam.
Well, I think a lot of people would recognize that we're like the eccentric ones in many ways.
The weirdos.
And so I think even like when we really think about it, the idea of just like, oh, this has to happen, and then the engagement, and then the wedding has to happen within 1 or 2 years, like that's all just like, where do these rules come from? So
right.
For us, that's what it's really like, what is this partnership? What are we really seeking in this, connection and our own healing journeys? That like the wedding, just as everything will come in divine timing. And so for us, it's just like, yeah, no, not yet.
Do you guys feel that there's nothing that you can handle at this point? Anything that comes up, you'll just work through it?
That's how I feel right now. That's really literally how I feel, because it put us through the ringer. And like just even the, afterwards, really processing everything and going through the stuff that we've gone through, and to come out of the other end and just like growing in love for each other, growing in more commitment for each other it feels like we could do anything, we could face anything.
Yeah, we've had some major challenges just as any other couples have. And what we've always gotten out of it at the end of it is like greater levels of understanding and enhanced communication and trust and love and all of those things. And so it almost feels like even when these challenges come up, it's like there's this like tiny piece in the background that's like, oh, what are we gonna get out of this?
Here's an opportunity to learn something. Or heal or something.
I can just see you guys like ordering like dinner and like making a moment to like lean into some piece of healing there. I love it. Do you ever just take those hats off and just be like, we're just gonna play a game of Monopoly, and if something comes up, we're just gonna put it on a little note?
You do have to do that sometimes, like, because the healing thing is hard. Sometimes you've got to like take a break from that and have fun and play and be silly and lighthearted. So not that healing can't happen there either, but some of the difficult challenges, you got to take a break from that as well, and knowing when to do that too.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna ask you both if there's anything that is intuitively coming up for you to share as we're coming to a close. Before I do that, I would just love to ask you both, just to circle back to the original episode that we have recorded around diversity and inclusion. Anything coming up to share with anybody that may listen to this who may still be masked in some way in terms of their sexuality, even after watching the show? So that would be the first thing, to watch the show, I would imagine, right? But even with all this representation, I'm sure obviously there's still people that just don't feel that they can really be who they are. So if there's anything that you would love to share with that person that may be listening to this.
That is a really good question.
Very good question. I definitely do. And I'm going to speak from my heart. And this is like coming from, because, what I've learned is to be yourself fully, no matter where you are on that journey, feeling like you can't be out, to your family, feeling like you can't be your fullest authentic self in the work environment, or feeling like, you're not your best version yet, but you really want to get there. So no matter where you're on that spectrum, on your journey, to be fully embracive of yourself, because without that self-acceptance and that self-love of where you're at, you can't get to the next spot and the next spot. So that's been what I've taken away from my whole self-actualization journey, is to be okay with where you're at, and it's okay, you'll get there, but you're where you're at, at the right time, and you're on your path always.
I love that. Thank you.
I think I've been kind of influenced recently by this Abraham Hicks video that I had found on YouTube that was actually recorded just before marriage was legalized for LGBT 15 years ago. And it was a really interesting way of kind of reframing everything for me. And I completely agree with a lot of the things that Aussie is saying from that perspective. And, I remember so clearly being in those situations of not feeling like I can be myself, and not trusting what connections or relationships or whatever that I was potentially going to lose, and living in that space of fear. I think what that video kind of added another layer to was really bringing it back to that sense of self, and really coming out to the self first, and kind of being accepting of yourself, and kind of learning to love all those parts of you that you've been, told to hate based on this and that person and whatever. That it's really that healing journey that will actually, we find that over time, the more that we heal those parts that we, have been taught to not like, it starts to matter less and less what anybody cares, what everybody else thinks. And you start to care less about who you might lose, because you're gaining such a sense of self that you're just like, if you don't see this light in me, if you don't see the goodness in me, and that is your only determining factor as to whether you accept me or not as a person, then I don't know if we're meant to be in each other's lives. And so it's it reframes everything. And so even in those restricting with air quotes situations, it's once you accept that part of yourself, you're just going to go about your day, and you're going to know maybe your family doesn't accept you, but you're just so in your zone of love that it doesn't matter. And so, that healing journey is that self-love, and that acceptance is that just did it for me.
Coming out to yourself, that's super powerful.
Yeah.
Was there something you wanted to add to that, Aussie?
I just wanted to also say, I love what you're saying there, Sam, because I think if you break all of it down, or this path that, the evolution of ourselves that we're doing, is really comes down to that. At the end of the day, is the self-love and self-acceptance, and everything else is because of that. So, dismantling everything down to that.
And what are we here for? It's to also recognize that we're all connected. And so it's like that is like loving everyone and everything and every experience. And it's like accepting others when we're accepting ours. Like it's all connected. We're all one. And that
when you have self-love, you have more compassion for another.
Yeah.
So that's just automatically happens.
You help other people love themselves more. Like it's all, at least that's, my perspective. And I think that's your perspective. And it's like, when we remember we're all connected, it's like, it just makes so much more sense.
And I love that, because for a lot of us, we underestimate the power we hold, because we think, what can we do? And we really can do so much just by exactly what you were both saying. Self-love, spreading that love, having compassion, that really carries such a strong vibration. Is there anything that you're feeling called to share as we come to an end?
Embrace your shadow. Embrace
that.
And I think we've just learned a lot in our own ways, that the more because we're in this, like, I guess we have this ability to share our stories in a different capacity. And we've kind of already broke the seal on that as far as, what is privacy in public? I don't know. The more that we're able to like be in our vulnerabilities and share that, because we're in a position where we're like, all right, we already did it, let's just keep going. Then we also invite other people to do the same in their own way. And we remind people that it is okay to be ourselves and we don't have to fit into every box. And so we're just like, we're having an opportunity to really invite people to be themselves and find connection in others and see themselves in us or whomever it is. So, yeah.
You're doing such amazing work. We'll put it in the show notes. Just let us know where we can find you both on social media and your website.
Thank you.
Awesome. Well, did you want to share the...
Oh, did you want us to say it?
Yeah, we'll say it. And then we'll put it in the show notes.
Sam has all of it.
Yeah. We're on, we have our website, so keepitsaucy.com. And that's with an S in front of Aussie.
I was going to say, don't forget the S. Yeah. Don't forget the S.
You're not the first one, actually, in this week. There were two. So, I'm like, no, it's Keep It Saucy. My S is there, not just Aussie.
And then afterwards, I'm like, oh yeah, Sam, S, Aussie.
Yeah. For people thinking I'm from Australia too. I'm like, no. Yeah, so keepitsaucy.com. I also have my consciousaltruism.com, and then the Saucy Tarot is there. We also have our Instagrams, so Keep It Saucy, conscious.altruism, and then Aussie _has _FOMO. So Aussie has FOMO. We have our YouTube channel. So we have all of the links in our Instagram and stuff. And so we can share that with you and you'll find all of them.
Definitely. Thank you so much. You both are such a joy. Thank you for all the light that you share and continue to share. I'm honestly, sincerely, really excited to see what else is going to come from Saucy. No, honestly, I really am.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Laura. This has been such a blessing to have this conversation with you about all of our favorite topics.
We hope you've enjoyed that episode of the Laura Sanso podcast. Thank you to our guests. To stay connected to host Laura Sanso, follow her at I am Laura Sanso or at the Laura Sanso podcast on Instagram. To learn more about Laura, go to www.laurasanso.com.